I'm Tony Ruiz of Gold Derby here with Susanne Bier, who is the director and executive producer of The First Lady on Showtime. And Susanne, this is one of those projects that I have to imagine could seem kind of daunting at first, with the scope of it, with the level of detail that you have to go in traversing these time periods and these three very different women. When you first came to this project, did you see that as a challenge, or did you see that as an opportunity?
Oh, definitely. I want to say as both, but I mean, definitely as an opportunity, or kind of an incredibly exciting and irresistible challenge. What I want to say that for me, being Danish, it was also like a huge honor. It was also like, whoa, I get to touch, I get to deal with American royalty, and I get to learn a whole lot of things and study a whole lot of things while doing this. And that, I thought that was incredibly interesting, and quite frankly, I've never done a project like that. And there was no version of me being able to say no to that.
I love that idea of that there was no version of you being able to say no to it. Your television work especially has been, these very different projects, from The Night Manager to The Undoing and then to this. Is that variety something that really appeals to you?
It does. It definitely does. I want to say in a way that, Undoing and Night Manager were somewhat more related, because they were both thrillers in a way, and they had something which I kind of, it was very, I was very sort of, I felt quite comfortable in the realm of that kind of storytelling. This is very different. And but what it has in common still, it's still always about human being. It's always about relationships. It's always about, like targeting the most emotional possible, entertaining, interesting angle of each scene. And so, yes, it was very different, but I still felt that it was sort of appealing to my strength. I didn't feel I was like sort of in a completely uncharted sort of territory.
Well, and I think it's so interesting, being Danish and not, maybe having the kind of folklore that is often ascribed to political families in the United States. Did that kind of distance, do you think that was a help to you in tackling this particular project?
Yes, I do think it was, because I came to it with huge respect, like with a real profound respect for the subject matter, but also being a storyteller, being a director, being someone who my goal is to entertain the audiences. My goal is to grip the audiences. And I think being Danish, I was able to kind of go, okay, this story might be of huge historical interest, but it actually, that you can't really tell it with living images in an exciting way. So are you sure that is a different way of doing it? Because my goal was always to protect the storytelling, to protect the cinematic, the cinematic language of television. I think that gave me a liberty to do that while still being respectful.
Well, and I have to imagine that logistically, this was a huge undertaking, because you're telling these three different stories. And when I spoke to Todd and Tony, the production designers, they talked about how this was really filmed in blocks. And so how did you, as the director, how did you kind of keep all of the stories, how they were going to intertwine and stuff like that? I mean, I would love to get inside your brain during that process.
I don't think you want to be inside my brain, because it was kind of crazy. Because we shot Betty first, and then we shot Michelle Obama, and then we shot Eleanor Roosevelt. And so essentially you can say we did 3 very, very long feature films on each of them. And then they were meant to be blended. And so there was a kind of sort of slightly schizophrenic brain that I had to kind of utilize, because I had to be very deep within each of these women, and in that very detailed way you are when you are on set and when you are dealing with the specifics of every single moment. But then at the same time, I had to kind of keep an eye on how does that actually fit into the bigger picture, and what are the similarities between the women? Where does it feel organic that you actually move from one to the other? And how does, because in order for it to feel organic, that you kind of switch between the stories, there's got to be, if not similarities, but a common way of reacting to things, if you kind of step back and you look at the 3 ladies, like they all have incredibly strong relationship with their daughters. They all have, all 3 stories are a love story with the actual president. And so there are common threads in all the stories, about them still being very, very different. So when you ask whether you want to be inside my brain, and I say you really don't want to be inside, we want to be inside that brain, because that part of it, I haven't actually slept for 1.5 years, I want to say. So it's been a huge undertaking. It's been a huge undertaking, directing 10 hours of fiction. It's like a very, very, kind of crazy big undertaking.
And to do it about these particular women played by these particular actors, how did you work with each of them? Was there like a common language? I know also with Viola being an executive producer as well. How did you work with them in terms of bringing these women to life?
All 3 actresses are incredible actors, and very, like, individually, they're very different actresses. And they have a different method. Like all great actors have a very personal method, which I guess they figure out throughout their career works for them. They're all 3 are incredibly diligent. I would not go to set and not know that they would know all their lines, that they would be incredibly well prepared, but also that they would probably have a zillion questions. So the way I work is I wake up, like if I'm being picked up like at, let's say at 5 a.m. or 4:30 a.m., I will then wake up 2.5 hours prior to that, and then prep the scenes and kind of anticipate whatever questions might be today's questions. And then I'd be on set and I will deal with all of that. The advantage of being incredibly well prepared is that you are actually capable of improvising. You're actually capable of changing things because you thought it all through and you kind of know what it needs to be. So if you're improvising or if you're changing things, it becomes cohesive to the grander scheme. And then on the way back from set, I might pop into editorial because there might be a new actor that I wanted to look at in terms of how this actor was fitting into the context, whether the acting was sort of different and then I'll go home, eat a little bit, go to sleep, and the next day will be like that for 140 days. No weekend. I mean, and essentially I'd be in editorial on the weekend and prepping for the next week on the weekend. So it's been crazy.
I'm tired just thinking about it. So one of the through lines that really stood out to me watching this show is that even though these women existed in totally different times and different political environments, that there was a commonality of them being underestimated by the people around them. If not by their husbands, then certainly by the political machine in each one. Was that something that you really wanted to kind of focus on?
Oh, absolutely. I think that is, I think in a way we are telling the story about three women who changed the world, except the world didn't quite realize to what extent it was changed by these three women. And there's no doubt that they have all been underestimated. There's no doubt that they have been, intriguingly, Michelle Obama has banged into walls which are eerily similar to the walls that Eleanor Roosevelt banged into. And although it's very visible throughout the series that obviously a lot have changed. We know a lot have changed. I mean, the series spans over 110 years, but still, the anticipation about what a first lady needs to be, how she needs to act, how she needs to look, what her role is. At some point, Michelle Obama says, I don't want to be a glorified hostess. And that is sort of the anticipation in a way. That is the expectation. And none of these three ladies were prepared to fulfill that expectation. They have quickly realized that this position can be used to achieve much bigger goals. Do they do it in a kind of hammering way? No, they don't. They actually do it in a quite elegant sort of. Once all three of them, once they realize how the system functions, they also realize how they quite elegantly can get the things that is very dear to their hearts, that are very important to them, how they can achieve those goals. And that's been incredibly interesting to recognize and to, quite frankly, communicate.
Was there any one of the three that surprised you in terms of I remember I was watching the show and going, I really didn't know as much about Betty Ford, and found it fascinating that this is a woman who really was kind of thrust into this role that she really didn't seem to want at first, and then still found a way to make it her own. Did you have a similar revelation throughout the process?
Oh, absolutely. Actually, I want to say with all three of them, I had revelations. But I mean, with Betty Ford, I think we all know about the Betty Ford clinics, but I don't think we know a lot more about her. And kind of getting to know that she was among the first women in the world to speak out freely about breast cancer was revelatory. I mean, really. And I want to say that being Danish, I did not know a lot about Eleanor Roosevelt. I knew about Eleanor Roosevelt and UN, but I didn't know about her. And what was kind of really intriguing for me was this obviously impactful woman who were like politically very visible, as visible as her husband. I mean, she was the one that gave the speech when after the bombing of Pearl Harbor, she gave the speech to the American people. But realizing that she was so vulnerable as a private person, that she was so fragile, that she thought of herself as someone who was not beautiful, not attractive, and yet she must have been incredibly charming. I thought that was kind of kind of shocking in such a exciting way. And I want to say with Michelle Obama, kind of recognizing particularly her impact on younger people, the impact she's made, because she's changed our perception of how the power speaks and understand younger people. And she's kind of made us all aware that we need younger people in order to understand the present, not the future, but the present. And I never thought about that until I started doing this series.
I'm curious, because this is, an anthology series. I'm curious if you've given any thought, whether you're involved in the future of this project, future iterations of this project or not. Did this spark some sort of interest in other first ladies that you think would benefit from this kind of exploration?
It did. I mean, you kind of go, oh, you could have this and this, and that could be really fun. But I want to say in this point, I'm still mixing. I'm still finishing. So I guess I'm kind of, I'm still very, very, very deeply involved in these three ladies. So I have not yet had the time to actually sort of have my own little game of who's going to be the next ones.
Considering what you did on this one, I think that's a totally fair answer. Susanne, congratulations. It really is just wonderful. Everybody go to goldderby.com, make your predictions for the Emmys, and stay tuned for interviews with more contenders throughout the season. Susanne Bier, the First Lady, great pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.